This video is a follow-up to the last video where I showed you how to install Selenium and run a test script. So this video will show you how to click on an element, click a link, element, something on the page. So now we're going to start really sort of getting to use the driver as a user would, rather than just accessing and looking at pages. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to get on my screen Google. So I'll just open up Google Chrome, because what I want to do is with Google Chrome, I want to access the page, which I'm going to automate, and I just want to get some details about what I'm going to click on. So I'm going to go over to the Internet Movie Database. I'm just trying to find an English version of this website. Okay, I think that should be good. Okay, so I will just open that up a little bit. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to arrive on the home page of the website, and then I'm going to click a link. So the link that I want to click on is going to be sign in. So if I click on that link, it then takes me to this sign in page. So I'm just going to go back, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to inspect the page, which opens up the web developer or developer console. Yeah, I'm not a front end coder, so there's some things about the front end and browsers which I might get wrong. So now what I want to do, this is the element which I've opened up or inspected, and I just want to right click on that, and we are going to take a look at XPath. Now there's various ways in which you can get the information for the element that you can click on, but the way I like to do it is to just get the XPath. You can get the ID, you can get I believe the outer HTML. I think you might be able to do that. You can get what else? The CSS, class attributes. So there's various ways you can hook into an element to tell your driver, this is the element which I'm looking for, and that's what I want to click onto. But this is the way I'm going to do it. I'm going to just look at XPaths, because that's how I normally do it. So I'm just going to copy that, and then once I've copied it, I'm just going to open up another tab here and temporarily just put it in here. So this is the XPath value which I've copied, and I'm just going to let it reside there for a sec, and I'll just head back over here. I'll just go to a new window, and the next thing which I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a file. So I'll create a Python file which we'll work with. So I'll just go into the folder, which will be desktop tutorial and it's cell. Now the reason why I label the folder cell rather than Selenium would be a lot easier. Sometimes when you're writing Python code, if you have a library class object which is the same name as a folder that you might have, there could be a conflict. So that's why I tend not to name folders the same name as potentially a library module that I might be using. So just go into there, and I'll just do let's just see what's in here. So my last file was testcell.py. Now I'll just copy that file. So I will copy that, and I will call that, let's give that a name. So I'm going to call this file tutorial 04 click py. The naming that I give it just means something for me, just so that I can keep track of where I am. So what I did when I did the last tutorials, I broke them up into 3 parts. So the first one was installing Chromium, the second one was installing Selenium, and then the next one was installing Google Chrome. Selenium for Google Chrome with the Chromedriver. So now the fourth one is being able to click. So it just really kind of makes sense to me. Okay. Okay. So let me just put Python on the end of that. Okay, cool. So here we have our folder, our file. Now, what I'll do, just to make things easier, I'm going to go into Vim. And I can just look at it this way. So I tend to do as much as possible within the using Vim rather than using an editor. So for me, Vim is just rather convenient and keeps me sort of close to Linux as well. Alright, so what we have over here, I'll just refresh our memory. So we've got the driver location. So this is the driver that I installed, and here we have the binary location. This is the actual executable Google Chrome file application, and then here we're starting a Chrome options instance, and then we've called it options in this variable, and then within this variable we then store the binary location string into what's called binary location and make that an attribute of options. And then on this line we have, just open that up a little bit more, we have 2 arguments for the WebDriver Chrome. We have the Chrome options, where we're setting that with our options. We have the driver location, where we are setting that to executable path, and then we have a object driver, and then with that object we then get the page, Internet Movie Database, the home page. We then print it out. So when we execute this script, it will actually go to that page, and then within the console we are also printing out the source code as a string to the terminal, and then we are closing the driver and then quitting the driver. So there's some things in here, we can keep all of this, but we're just going to modify it. So if I just start modifying that, now I don't really need to continue printing that, so I will just highlight that out. And there's a few things that we need to first do. So I'm just going to import additional libraries which come with WebDriver. So the first one is going to be, I'll explain as I go through the code, I'll explain what these libraries are doing, so or modules are doing. So from Selenium .webdriver .support.ui we'll import WebDriver wait. Then again from I'll just copy this line. So we will just remove that. So we have support import expected conditions as EC. Then we have from Selenium WebDriver common .by import by. So that's what we need, and later on we'll build this up in future tutorials, and you'll see how exactly we use these modules. So, and the other one that I want to import will be a Python library, which is time, so that way I can put a delay in my code. So now the next thing I'll do, I'll just come down here and I'm just going to put a few things which I'm going to print into the terminal, so that way as we run the code I can explain what's happening and validate how Selenium is working. So the first thing I'll do, I'll just put a print. I'll just come up here. So the first thing we'll do, we'll go to the landing page. And what we'll do, we will print out the current URL for that landing page. So this will be the URL as received by Selenium, as accessed by Selenium, and it's going to return that value back to our terminal. So we will just print out the driver current URL. Okay. Now the next thing we want to do, I just want to sorry, my keys are really small, and page down is really close to you know, my arrow keys, so sometimes I hit page down or page up. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is print the page title, and I'll just update that to title, so that's how you get the page title. And there's other things that you can get. So for the moment, what I normally rely on is what is the URL, what is the title. That helps me kind of decipher where I am in my code as I'm using Selenium to automate. Okay, so now the next thing that I want to do I want to create a couple more variables. I don't need to create variables to do this. I can just write it directly within the next line of code, but I like to use variables. So I'm going to create a variable called wait element. Now you'll see exactly where I put that into the code. And the other one is going to be my XPath value. So if you can remember the XPath value, we placed it up here, and I'm just going to copy that, go back into my code and insert it. Now what I'll need to do, because I'm using double quotes and my string has double quotes, I just need to escape them. Okay, so I've escaped those, so that's now an actual string which won't cause any errors. Okay, so the next thing I need to do, I'm just going to create another variable, and using WebDriver wait, which is up here, then I can just copy that. I will then place inside of that driver, and I'll put my variable. So WebDriver wait is just waiting for the element, because the thing about using Selenium, you're actually taking control of the browser. So when you do automation, you also have to think that some websites might be slow. It takes time for a page to load. It takes time for the element to appear in the page. So what this does, instead of just quickly running code and the elements are not there and then your code breaks, then what this does, it just allows you to wait for things to appear. So I'm just going to put my variable wait element, and like I said, I didn't need to use a variable. I could just put a value in there, which is 30 seconds, 10 seconds, etc., etc. So I'm going to use 30 seconds. I think that's a good enough time for elements to appear on a page. And then there's another argument I need to put in here. That's going to be EC, so up here, which is expected conditions as EC. So we're saying WebDriver wait 30 seconds for the presence of element located by within there we have another argument argument. And that argument will be by. So by is this module up here, and we are going to say wait for the presence of the element located by XPath. And so that XPath value is going to be the variable which I created and populated with the XPath string. And I think that looks good. If it isn't good, it will give me some errors. Just increase this slightly. Okay, so now another thing that I'm going to do, I don't have to do this, but I like to look at my console, look at my terminal. I don't know why I keep saying console. I mean, yeah, it's terminal. Look at terminal and just debug, see exactly what's being located. It just gives me a good idea as to what's happening. So what I'm now going to say, I'm going to say get attribute, and this is quite similar to front end. As I say, I'm not really a huge whiz on front end development. I know some, and I know that there's various ways to look at, listen for events and etc etc, and this pretty much is code where you get attributes, and there's other ways in which you can listen to events, etc etc, but I'll come to those later. So for the moment I will say get attribute, and the attribute will be the outer HTML. And then we'll just print out that value. And so as you can see here, I imported time, and so this is where I'm going to use time. So I'm just going to put a delay in my code, because the next thing that I want to do is, once I've located the element, I then want to click on it. So before I click on it, I'm just going to put in a delay of 5 seconds, and then shortly after the delay, what I want to do, I want to click on the element. Okay, so X is our object, and so I can just put use the function click on that object. Now the next thing I want to do, I'm going to print out the next page. So once I've clicked on my element, then the expectancy is that it's going to go to the sign in page. So I'll just put a new line, comma, and I'll call that sign in page. And what I'll do, I'll just copy these 2 lines of code, because as I go on to the next page, I've clicked and then I go on to the next page, then the expectancy is that it will be a different URL and it will be a different title. So I think that should look good, and then finally I want to close and then quit. Typically when you write code like this, you might want to use ways in which you can capture your errors. So if you have a code where it loops through URLs and one of them breaks, then you don't want your code to break. So you just want to use you know, a try except you know, a wrapper, error wrapper. So I haven't done that. I've just kept it like this, and hopefully there won't be any errors. And what I'll do, I'll just I think that's a little bit too big, so I'll just make that a bit smaller so you can see the code, most of the code in its entirety. Okay, so I will save that, and then over here I will run that code. And I'll just close this window. So okay, get rid of that. Okay, all right, so what we're going to see, here's my window where I run the code, and what we're going to see automation of the actual Google Chrome browser. And so it will open on the screen, and then it will do what I asked it to do, which is go to the home page. It will then click an element, which is the sign in, which then takes us to the sign in page, and then it will close afterwards. So yeah, that's what it should do. So let's have a look. And there's an error. Okay, so we have an error in our code, and just read what the message says. Cannot import name WebDriver wait. So the issue is capitalization. So I'll just go back and correct that. And also, oops, sorry, wrong one. And I also need to correct it down here. Okay, and I think that looks okay. So let's give that a try. Okay, so we're now going to the home page, and I'll just put this over here as well. Okay, so I've got another error, and we'll just correct that. So type objects by has no attribute path. So let's go back in and correct that, and I'll just close that for the moment. Okay. I need to call that XPath. Okay. And hopefully that should now work. So I'll just put that over to the side a bit. Let's just clear this and run that again. Okay, so we're on the home page, and it's now looking for the outer HTML, which it did. That was very quick. So you saw it go to the home page, then it clicked the element, then it went over to the sign-in page after clicking the element. And here in my console, you can see I've got the home page, which is the current URL. I've also got the title. That wasn't what I was expecting on the outer HTML. I'll go in there and correct that. So we also have the sign-in page, where it then went over to the sign-in page, and you've got the URL, and then you've also got the title for that. So let's just go back and okay. Alright, so let's go back down here and we'll try that again, and we'll just do that correction on outer HTML. So I want to print out outer rather than the string outer HTML. Okay, so let's give that a try, and I'll just clear that again, and I'll press that. Okay, so home page, we're waiting 30 seconds to find the element, and it's clicked it. So this is what I wanted to show you. This was the element that we were looking for, and although I gave it an XPath value, which looks like this, what it did, once it clicked it or found it, it then returned the outer HTML for that particular element. And like I said, we could also do things such as if we didn't want to use XPath, we could use the class attribute. But then I tend not to use class attributes because unless they're unique, then it will have some difficulty finding the specific element that you need, and that's why I use XPaths. So yeah, that's it. Cheers.